Halloween. A night of wonder and children's laughter. A night when spooky stories are part of the fun. But in Texas in 1974, Halloween would become a night of true horror. On October 31st, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien accepted a candy stick from his father. Within minutes, he was dead, poisoned by cyanide. The man who gave him that candy would be prosecuted, convicted, and executed. But the legacy of that night would haunt every Halloween that followed. Tonight, we unpeel the layers of deceit, desperation, and calculated horror behind the case known in newspapers as the Candyman murder. We'll walk you through the timeline, the motives, the trial, the evidence, and the unanswered questions that still shiver in the dark. Ronald Clark O'Brien lived in Deer Park, Texas, a modest suburb of Houston. He was a church deacon, drove the church bus, sang in the choir. He wore glasses. He smiled easily. He was a father. To many, he seemed quiet, unremarkable. But the calm sheen hit a man under immense pressure. His finances were collapsing. He had lost several jobs, been late on payments, was deeply in debt. Car repossession threatened him. Creditor calls were daily. Court records show that in the weeks before Halloween, Ronald took out life insurance policies on his children, incremental increases in coverage, changes in beneficiaries. He also began asking questions others wouldn't. How much cyanide is lethal? Where to obtain it? How much is smallest possible dose? Neighbors would later claim they saw him buying garden supply chemicals or asking odd questions about poisons in conversation. These details emerged in trial testimony. They paint a picture of a man cornered by desperation. But none of that, on its own, proves guilt. The evidentiary path would have to link Ronald to the poison, the candy, and the motive. Rain fell that October 31st in Deer Park. The drizzle was light but persistent. Ronald accompanied a neighbor, Jim Bates, and Bates's children to go trick-or-treating. Their plan was modest, just 2 streets, due to the weather. The children, Timothy, 8, and Elizabeth, 5, ran ahead, laughing under their raincoats. At each door they knocked, lights flickered. They collected candy, chocolate bars, gum, lollipops. The usual. As the night deepened, they approached a house with no lights, no decorations. "Let's skip it," the kids urged. But Ronald stayed behind. He later claimed the owner answered and handed out 5 giant pixie sticks, the unusually large version of powder-filled candy straws. He caught up with the group, presenting those 5 sticks. He distributed them, 1 to Timothy, 1 to Elizabeth, the others to the Bates children, and a 10-year-old boy he knew from church. No one else witnessed the distribution. No one claimed they saw the homeowner. The story hung in the air like a whispered lie. Back at home, the children sorted their loot. Timothy's eyes landed on the pixie sticks. Ronald encouraged him. "Go ahead, just 1 treat." Timothy ripped open the tube and poured the white powder into his mouth. He paused. "That's bitter," he said. Ronald offered him Kool-Aid to wash it down. Moments later, the boy complained of stomach cramps, collapsing convulsively, vomiting, foam at the mouth. His father dialed for help. Paramedics arrived, but with the severity, they could not stabilize him. At the hospital, signs of cyanide poisoning surfaced rapidly. The autopsy confirmed it. Timothy died from acute cyanide ingestion. The dose was massive, more than enough to kill 2 grown men. Meanwhile, investigators would later recover the 4 other pixie sticks, 1 taped to Elizabeth's Halloween haul, 2 in the Bates children's bags, and 1 still in the hand of the 10-year-old. None had been consumed. That child had fallen asleep while holding it. Had they opened them, perhaps the death toll would have been mass. News of the tragedy leaked quickly. Houston newspapers screamed, "Boy dies from Halloween candy." Parents scanned their children's candy bags, throwing suspicious wrappers into trash. Across the city, rumors spread of a stranger who poisons candy. The myth of poisoned Halloween treats had been told in whispers. Now it seemed real. Meanwhile, crime labs confirmed traces of potassium cyanide in the candy Timothy ate. Investigators convened, sorting through candy wrappers, candy tubes, parental interviews, purchase records. They questioned whether more than one candy tube was poisoned. Did someone else do this? Did Ronald give innocent candy? Could a stranger be involved? But as evidence mounted, suspicion turned inward. Investigators retraced the trick-or-treat route. They visited every house in those two streets. They canvassed for eyewitnesses. None confirmed the distribution of pixie sticks by a homeowner. The house Ronald claimed had given out the candy belonged to a man named Courtney Melvin. But Melvin worked at Houston's Hobby Airport that night. Witnesses placed him away from home. He could not have answered the door. Investigators turned their focus to Ronald's own purchases. They found he had bought potassium cyanide from a garden supply shop weeks before. Receipts and chemical logs showed a transaction. They examined Ronald's home, his office. They matched staple marks on the candy tubes to the stapler on his desk. The tubes appeared resealed using that stapler. They delved into the insurance policies. Increases made days and hours before Halloween. Names changed. Beneficiaries altered. The monetary value was high. Investigators interviewed church acquaintances, co-workers, neighbors. Testimony emerged. Ronald had asked co-workers about cyanide dosage, made speculative remarks about how to use it quietly. In total, the evidence formed a mosaic: motive, money, means, cyanide, and opportunity, control over candy distribution. Ronald's defense attempted to sow doubt. They argued the myth of poison candy was an old urban legend. Perhaps a stranger had delivered poisoned pixie sticks that night, an unknown killer targeting children indiscriminately. They questioned the chain of custody. They challenged the chemical's purity and lab analysis. They asserted that the restapling evidence was circumstantial. Perhaps someone else repackaged the sticks. They criticized the insurance increases as lawful and claimed Ronald did not profit from Timothy's death in any known way. They emphasized his church standing, his public persona. Ronald insisted he'd been framed. He claimed he, too, was a victim. But in court, the prosecution countered every claim with forensic testimony, purchase records, staples matching, witness statements. The trial ran in June 1975. The courtroom was packed, the community riveted. The prosecution painted Ronald as a man who disguised murder as Halloween kindness. They argued he bought cyanide. He sealed candy using his own stapler. He altered life insurance. He was in dire debt. The defense appealed to empathy, to doubt, to the possibility of a stranger's intervention. But the jury, after less than an hour of deliberation, returned a guilty verdict for capital murder. They deliberated 71 minutes before sentencing him to death. As the gavel fell, a hush blanketed the courtroom. The man who had handed poison to his own child was now condemned by his peers. From 1975 until 1984, Ronald filed appeals, petitions, and plea efforts. All were denied. On March 31, 1984, Ronald was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. Outside, a crowd gathered. Some chanted trick or treat, and through candy, a grim reflection of the crime itself. Reporters noted that onlookers viewed the execution as a warning. Others saw it as an unsettling ritual. Local media remarked how the myth of poisoned Halloween candy was now anchored in sinister reality. Halloween would never be regarded the same way. Before 1974, reports of tainted Halloween treats were largely anecdotal, myths whispered in neighborhoods. After the O'Brien case, every wrapper, stick, package was second-guessed. Schools began safe zones, trunk or treat, and supervised candy distribution. Parents abandoned handing out full-size candy bars. Media churned out annual warnings. Inspect candy, avoid unwrapped treats, report suspicious packaging. The fear of a poisoned confection became entrenched. Yet, despite widespread fear, no other documented case of stranger placed cyanide candy on Halloween has been conclusively verified. Even in closure, some shadows remain. We don't know exactly where Ronald acquired the cyanide beyond the garden supply purchase. We don't know whether someone else helped reseal or tampered with the candy. We don't know his internal thought process in those final moments. And we don't know what Timothy's last thought was, or how much he trusted his father in the last seconds. These ambiguities linger like ghosts in a haunted house, invisible but felt. Candy is meant to delight. Halloween is meant to be fun. But this case reminds us, darkness can creep beneath the most familiar facade. Each October, when a parent hands a child a sweet, they place trust in the unseen. Timothy O'Brien trusted his father with candy, and that trust was deadly. So tonight, as you flick a porch light for trick-or-treaters, look again at the wrappers. Because sometimes the greatest danger wears a mask of normality. If this story unsettled you, subscribe to Haunting Cold Cases. We unearth the dark truths behind unimaginable crimes, so you don't just hear a story, you feel it. Like, comment, and share to keep these shadows alive. And if you have any insights, theories, or a case you want us to dig deeper into, leave it in the comments below. Because here, every mystery whispers for attention, and we're always listening. Until the next haunting, this is Haunting Cold Cases.